Sarah had had enough. Enough of snotty noses, playground duty, and the soul-crushing monotony of marking papers. 10 years of teaching primary school had sucked the life out of her. She yearned for fresh air, a new challenge, and frankly, a job where glitter wasn't considered a health hazard. So, she did what any sane, rational person on the verge of a nervous breakdown would do. She quit her job and became a bricklayer. Her family and friends thought she'd gone completely bonkers. Bricklaying? Her mother had shrieked. But darling, what about your nails? Sarah just grinned, picturing her perfectly manicured nails tapping away on a calculator instead of prying open glue sticks. The image was far more appealing. Little did she know, her manicured nails would soon become the least of her worries. The construction site was a far cry from the pastel-colored walls of her classroom. It was loud, dusty, and filled with burly men who looked like they could bench press small cars. Sarah, with her petite frame and penchant for floral dresses, stuck out like a sore thumb. But Sarah was determined. She was done with being underestimated. She was here to learn a trade, build something real, and maybe get a tan in the process. Besides, who wouldn't want to swap lesson plans for power tools? It was time to ditch the whiteboard for a Bricky's trowel and prove everyone wrong. The first few weeks were, to put it mildly, eventful. There were a few near misses with runaway wheelbarrows, a rather unfortunate incident involving a cement mixer and her favorite pair of boots, and the constant fear of dropping a brick on her own foot, or worse, someone else's. Then there were the muscles. She'd never realized how many muscles she had until they all started screaming in protest. Lifting bricks, mixing cement, and hauling scaffolding was not for the faint-hearted. She ached in places she didn't even know existed. But amidst the chaos, something unexpected happened. The burly blokes she'd been terrified of turned out to be absolute sweethearts. They taught her the ropes, teased her mercilessly, but always with a twinkle in their eyes, and never hesitated to lend a hand, especially when it came to lifting anything heavier than a teacup. There was Gaz, the foreman, with a heart of gold and a vocabulary that would make a sailor blush. Big Dave, who looked like he could wrestle a bear but cried at the drop of a hat. And young Liam, who was convinced Sarah was secretly a princess in disguise. They were an unlikely bunch, but they welcomed her into their world with open arms and an endless supply of ribald jokes. It was rough. It was tough, but it was also strangely heartwarming. It wasn't all just brute strength and near-death experiences, though. Sarah quickly realized she had a knack for the more technical aspects of the job. She was a whiz with numbers, could calculate angles in her sleep, and had an uncanny ability to order the exact right amount of bricks, something that had always eluded the men. "It's like she's got a sixth sense, that one," Gaz had muttered to Dave one day, watching in awe as Sarah directed a delivery of bricks with the precision of an air traffic controller. Never seen anything like it. Word spread quickly about Sarah's hidden talents. Soon she was not only laying bricks but also helping out with the business side of things. She started doing quotes, managing orders, and even redesigned their website, much to Liam's delight, who could now finally show off his rudimentary coding skills. It turned out that years of dealing with unruly children and deciphering the education department's budget had given Sarah a unique set of skills. Skills that were surprisingly transferable to the construction industry. Who knew? With Sarah on board, things started to change. The once chaotic business was becoming more organized, more efficient, and dare they say it, profitable. Quotes were accurate, orders arrived on time, and there was a noticeable decrease in expletives uttered on site, except for Gaz, whose vocabulary remained as colorful as ever. They even landed a few big contracts, thanks in no small part to Sarah's persuasive charm and detailed proposals. She had a way of explaining things in plain English, even to clients who didn't know a trowel from a teaspoon. "It's not just about laying bricks, you see," she'd explain, her eyes twinkling. "It's about building dreams, creating spaces where people can live, work, and create memories. And build dreams they did. Houses, extensions, even a fancy new wing for the local library, much to the delight of her former colleagues. The business was booming, all thanks to the former primary school teacher who decided to trade in her red pen for a trowel. Summer in the city was brutal. The sun beat down relentlessly, turning the construction site into a furnace. Sweat dripped, muscles ached, and even Gaz's normally jovial demeanor wilted slightly. But Sarah was in her element. She ditched her usual jeans and t-shirt for a pair of denim shorts and a fitted high-vis vest that showed off her surprisingly toned arms. She'd even taken to wearing a bright red bandana to keep her hair out of her face, giving her the air of a glamorous pirate queen surveying her domain. The lads, bless their cotton socks, were smitten. Even Gaz, who'd seen it all in his years on the tools, found himself strangely flustered whenever Sarah was around. Liam, of course, was convinced she was about to whip out a cutlass and lead them on a treasure hunt. But it wasn't just her appearance. Sarah brought a certain energy to the sight. She was always upbeat, always cracking jokes, and had an uncanny ability to find cold beers hidden in the most unlikely of places. "She's like a ray of sunshine, that one," Dave mumbled to anyone who'd listen, wiping his brow with a sigh. A ray of sunshine with a really good eye for a straight line. The summer rush was in full swing and the phones were ringing off the hook. Everyone was flat out, but despite their best efforts, they were struggling to keep up with the demand. "We need more blokes," Gaz groaned one evening, downing a beer after a particularly long day. "Can't keep up with all these bloody jobs." "Maybe we need more than just blokes," Sarah mused, tapping her finger on the table thoughtfully. "Maybe we need someone who can sell ice to an Eskimo, someone who can charm the pants off a client, someone—" She paused dramatically. "Who can rock a high-vis mini like it's nobody's business?" Gaz choked on his beer. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" And that's how Sarah, the former primary school teacher turned bricklaying extraordinaire, found herself promoted to head of sales. Word spread like wildfire about Sarah's business acumen and her knack for landing lucrative contracts. It seemed everyone wanted a piece of the action. Offers started pouring in, from rival construction companies to tool manufacturers, all eager to have Sarah on their team. She even got invited to speak at a construction industry conference, much to her amusement. From the classroom to the construction site, a woman's journey, the flyer read, featuring a picture of Sarah looking confident and capable in her work boots and hard hat. Her phone was constantly buzzing, her inbox overflowing. It was flattering, overwhelming, and more than a little surreal. Who knew that a former teacher with a penchant for power tools and a way with words could be in such high demand? As Sarah stood on stage, looking out at the sea of faces in the audience, she couldn't help but smile. There were men in suits, women in hard hats, young apprentices, and seasoned professionals, all there to hear her speak. "I never set out to be a trailblazer," she began, her voice strong and clear. "I just wanted a job where I could wear steel-capped boots and not have to explain why my clothes were covered in glitter." The audience laughed, and Sarah knew she had them hooked. She spoke about her journey, the challenges she faced, the lessons she learned, and the importance of diversity in a traditionally male-dominated industry. She spoke about the incredible men she worked with, the camaraderie, the banter, and the unwavering support they'd shown her from day one. She emphasized that it wasn't about men versus women, but about working together, using their unique skills and perspectives to build something great. By the end of her speech, the room was buzzing. People lined up to shake her hand, to share their stories, to thank her for being a voice for change. She was an inspiration, a role model, a living, breathing example of what happens when you break down barriers and challenge the status quo. And as for those who doubted her, those who said a woman couldn't hack it in the construction industry, well, Sarah had a message for them, delivered with a wink and a mischievous grin. "Watch out, boys, because we're here. We're trowel-wielding and we're not going anywhere." The future was bright, the possibilities endless, and Sarah, the former primary school teacher turned bricklaying, business-savvy powerhouse, was ready to build it, brick by glorious brick.